Hello everybody, I hope you're all well. So today's video is going to be a little bit of a different one, I can't lie. I never really make videos about like individual people just because firstly I feel like it's a bit peak, and second of all I've never really come across someone who irks me enough or even interests me enough to make an entire video about them. But when I started looking into this person, I realized I had to make a whole video about them because it's so interesting. Today I am going to be talking about Danielle Bernstein, also known as weworewhat. She has over 2.6 million followers. She has her own fashion line. She has collaborated with multiple jewelry and fashion brands. She's been featured in Forbes and Vogue and is now a millionaire. She's also a fashion influencer. That's what she did it. Did I say that? And this may seem on first appearance all fine and dandy and very glamorous, but Danielle Bernstein has probably become one of the most disliked fashion influencers about. This is a tale about allegedly how far one person will go to be the ultimate girl boss, the downfalls of being a girl boss, allegedly stealing designs, fashion copywriting, and whether it is more important in this day and age to appear successful rather than actually be successful. And I just wanted to let you guys know that I will be saying allegedly and accused in this video. It's not like I'm trying to diffuse the situations in any way, but I do need to protect myself legally when talking about stuff like this. The past few weeks was actually not the first time I had heard about Danielle Bernstein. The first time I heard about Danielle Bernstein was all the way back in February when she joined TikTok, because TikTok, they were not having it, babes. And by the way, before she joined TikTok, she was still very well known and widely disliked. But as soon as she joined the platform, people started making expose TikToks about her. They were roasting her. They were calling her out on all of her alleged shady behavior, to the point where still now she has switched off all of her comments. So I will be exploring all of her controversies today, and I'm not the first person to talk about Danielle Bernstein on YouTube. Kristen Leo made a really good video exploring the fashion copywriting side of it, so I will leave that link down below. I will be discussing that in today's video, but Kristen talks about it with a lot more nuance and detail than I'll ever be capable of, so make sure you guys go check it out. And also Cruel World Happy Mind spoke about Danielle's controversies briefly in her Girl Boss video, so I'll link that down below as well. And just before I get into today's video, I would just like to thank today's sponsor, Spotlight. Spotlight is an oral care brand which specializes in toothbrushes, toothpaste, teeth whitening products, and more. And they very kindly sent me over, oh my god, I can't pick it up with one hand. They very kindly sent me over their teeth whitening strips, which comes with the toothpaste, and also their teeth whitening pen. And I am always very skeptical about teeth whitening products, and especially taking teeth whitening sponsorships. But Spotlight was created by two dentists. They're actually at the bottom of the packet, hi, and only use ingredients which are clinically proven, cruelty-free, vegan, and sulfate-free, but they're all still active ingredients which will target all of your oral health needs. The product which I have been using the most has definitely been the teeth whitening strips, because they are so easy to use. Every couple of weeks, I will just pop the strips on the bottom teeth and the top teeth, and you leave it for an hour. So usually I'll just do some work because I'm a girl boss. They aren't uncomfortable or invasive in any way, really. And then I will just rinse them off. I would have taken a video of this, but there was so much like teeth whitening product and saliva that it looked kind of gross. So I will remove them off, and then I'll brush my teeth using the whitening toothpaste, which I've also been using every day and I really like. And I definitely noticed a difference in the first time that I used the strips, and now I use them every couple of weeks. And I've never used teeth whitening products, so I don't have anything to compare it to. But what I will say is that they did not leave my teeth feeling sensitive, and most importantly, they left with a very sort of subtle white color. They don't look super bright and unnatural, which is what I was really scared of. So you guys can join the Spotlight community by using the link down below, and the lovely people of Spotlight have also given you guys a code. If you use Jordan T in all caps, you can get 15% off your first order. Thank you again, Spotlight, for sponsoring today's video. So let's start at the beginning. Danielle started her blog in 2010 after she transferred universities. She transferred to the Fashion Institute of Technology and she called her blog wewerewhat, and she was 18 years old at the time. Sorry, I felt like I delivered that information in a really weird order. So it's very clear that she's always had an interest in fashion. And for at least 5 years, from what I could find on the internet, she remained fairly uncontroversial. Around 4 to 5 years ago, I think, I couldn't quite pin a time on when this happened, but between 4 to 5 years ago, she got into a little bit of controversy and was accused of photoshopping her images to quote unquote an unrealistic standard, particularly photoshopping her body. Now, I don't know whether she photoshopped these pictures, whether she stretched them, or whether she just used angles to manipulate the way her body looks. To be honest, I don't think there's that much of a difference. I understand why people were calling her out, because I think sort of the climate between 2017 to 2018, people were starting to call out influencers for photoshopping their bodies and using certain angles. I mean, I made a whole video about it, for heaven's sake, but I can understand the pressure that influencers feel to Photoshop their own bodies. Do I condone it? No. But do I understand it? Yes. But because a lot of influencers were photoshopping their images at the time, I am going to strike this off Danielle's record. I'm not going to include this in her list of controversies. I just thought it was worth bringing up. One of Danielle's first controversies was in May of 2018 when she collaborated with jewelry brand Lulu DK and released a line of her own jewelry. And again, this all sounds well and good until you realize that she was accused by multiple jewelry brands of stealing their designs. I will insert pictures, but the jewelry brands which she has been accused of copying were Foundry, Retriever, Bondi Jewelry, and even Tiffany & Co. And some of these jewelry brands are independent jewelry brands. And subsequently, Danielle was called out by Diet Prada, which is basically a fashion whistleblowing Instagram account. And they very often call out big influencers for allegedly ripping off smaller independent brands. There definitely are some very, very big similarities, especially with the ring. Foundry, which was one of the brands which Danielle allegedly copied. The founder, Beth Bugdake, did post an Instagram post which has now been deleted, saying that she felt crushed about the entire situation. And because of this whole alleged copying situation, it did garner a lot of negative attention to not only Danielle Bernstein but also Lulu DK. Lulu DK were possibly seen as enabling the situation or not being vigilant enough to see if any of the jewelry had been copied. And Nordstrom, which was the store which was carrying the jewelry line, said they would not be releasing the jewelry pieces which were questioned, and Danielle did apologize on her Instagram story. And after this, there were no controversies surrounding Danielle for quite a while until March 2020. Danielle's clothing line, wewerewhat, used to be stocked exclusively at Macy's, and during this time in March 2020, she was accused of copying Cecily Banson, I think that's how you pronounce it, Cecily Banson's baby doll dress. I will insert pictures, and to be fair, baby doll dresses aren't a super unique design, but the reason that Danielle was accused of copying this particular baby doll dress was because she is seen photographed in this baby doll dress. And alongside with her albeit very short history of allegedly copying designers, people didn't really pay much attention to this. She didn't receive that much backlash for this, and she did not respond to this controversy. Then in July of 2020, Danielle posted this picture on Instagram and said that she will be remaking this vintage pair of gym shorts for her own clothing line. Plot twist, turns out the gym shorts weren't vintage. They were bought off an Australian Etsy seller called Art Garments, and they are made to order. When this was brought to her attention, she very quickly edited the caption and said that it was a mistake made by her team, I believe. And again, in July of 2020, there was another controversy, and this one is a little bit more damning. Danielle was accused of stealing this mask and chain design from a small Latina-owned business called By Second Wind, and the reason reason why people didn't just think this was a coincidence was because Danielle actually messaged By Second Win, which was founded by Karen Perez, on June 29th requesting samples of her masks, and then on July 2nd sent another message saying that she would be releasing masks and chains of her own, but it wasn't copying, it was just a coincidence because she has sunglasses and chains in her fashion line, and also the mask shape was different. And very quickly after she posted pictures on her Instagram of her new mask and chain release designs, people immediately started calling her out. Diet Prada made a post about it. Karen Perez spoke to Refinery29 and said this whole situation made her want to quit her business. If this has happened because trying to protect myself, honestly, I think this whole situation is absolutely despicable. To have the cheek to ask for samples, then for 3 or 4 days later to make something which is nearly identical and if anything looks worse. And Danielle did respond to all this controversy saying that the accusations were false. To completely dismiss all of these accusations as false is definitely an interesting move, but also a very clever move, which I will elaborate more on later. But she also said in this statement that she would be donating all of these masks to healthcare workers, along with, I believe, around 5,000 more. So I believe she actually didn't end up putting these masks up for sale. In October 2020, Danielle was accused by lingerie brand The Great Eros of stealing their signature packaging design and putting it on, I believe it was her swimwear line, her Onia line. And after this accusation, Danielle actually filed a lawsuit against The Great Eros. She said that it wasn't for financial gain, but rather it was to prove that she did not infringe on any copyright laws. And she said that her pattern on her pieces of clothing were inspired by Henri Matisse paintings and line drawings. The pattern isn't identical, but it is very, very similar. And upon first glance, you'd probably think it was the same pattern. And I will leave down below the Insider article with all of her controversies in it because they do go very in depth into this particular situation. But to put it very simply, Danielle's legal team tried to settle with the Great Eros outside of court. Great Eros weren't having it, and the Great Eros did actually manage to copyright their packaging design, and on November 11th, 2020, filed their own lawsuit against Danielle Bernstein for allegedly stealing their design and selling clothing with the design on it. And I believe that that case is still ongoing. In November 2020, grayscale designer Carla Whitney accused Danielle Bernstein of copying her signature leather corset skirt design for her Macy's holiday collection, which Danielle had originally purchased in 2017. And then in January 2021, there was actually an insider investigation, and I'm going to read this directly from the Insider article. A designer for swimwear brand Onia told Insider's Rachel Premack that in 2019, Bernstein brought in a piece of Dolce & Gabbana fabric and wanted her team to work on something similar. 2 former Onia employees also said that Bernstein brought in a cotton top for RUMI, a line by influencer and designer Rumi Neely, and asked them to emulate it as a swim top. In 2020, the founders of the small activewear Live the Process said they sent Bernstein a set of long-sleeved, collar-ribbed knit tops and matching shorts at her request. Co-founder Jared Veer told Insider that it seemed Bernstein not only copied the company's shirt, but also its signature minimalist photography design. Hello, editing Jordan here. My audio decided to drop off at this part of the video, but what I was saying was that in March of 2021, We Are Kin founder Ngoni accused Danielle Bernstein of copying her silk strappy maxi dress. I will insert pictures so you guys can see, and back to the video. And the reason why Ngoni did not just think that this was a crazy coincidence was because she said that Danielle reached out to her requesting samples of her dress. Danielle does dispute this claim, saying that Ngoni offered to send her one of these dresses. But either way, Ngoni's design and Danielle's design looks very similar. And Danielle also responded to this on her story saying, "I'm sick and tired of being accused of stealing designs or content that I absolutely did not. These ridiculous claims are for 15 minutes of fame, are unfounded and unfair." Obviously, I do need to be careful with what I say, but unfounded. And there have been other controversies surrounding Danielle Bernstein. She had a spat with a Poshmark seller. Her behaviour during the pandemic has been criticised quite heavily. She's also been accused by influencers on TikTok of stealing their content and picture ideas and not crediting them. But the last controversy I want to talk about today is her book. She wrote an autobiography called This Is Not a Fashion Story and released it in sometime in 2020, May of 2020, and it made it onto the New York Times best-selling list. What? But what the New York Times does, thank God, is they will actually put a small little dagger symbol on the list if there are suspicious bulk purchases of your book. Now, there is absolutely no proof of this apart from the dagger, but a lot of people do believe and think that Danielle may have gotten her team to bulk buy the book so it would be on the bestseller list and she could call herself a New York Times bestselling author, because that's very girl boss. Editing Jordan is back. Don't know why technicality wise this video was a bit of a disaster, but basically obviously the audio dropped off earlier and it's dropped off again for the rest of the video. Luckily there is still audio from the camera, but it's not audio from the microphone, so the rest of the video does sound a little bit echoey and I'm so sorry about that. It's literally like one of my pet peeves, but I don't have any time to refilm it. So I hope that you guys don't mind. I'm so sorry if it's annoying. You do get used to it after a while. But yeah, I know. I hope you guys enjoy it anyway. So now that I've given a timeline of a majority of Danielle Bernstein's controversies, as you guys can probably see, a lot of these involve allegedly copying / stealing designs. Anything from already successful big brands such as Tiffany & Co, or independent businesses such as We Are Kin and By Second Wind. And I remember as I was researching for this video, I was really shocked by the lack of protection for small and independent designers. And the reason why stuff like this can happen, why big designers or big brands can steal ideas from small independent creators, is because of the lack of copyright laws, the lack of fashion copyright laws to be specific. As I said earlier, Kristen Leo really focused on fashion copyright laws, or the lack of fashion copyright laws, in her video, so make sure you guys go check that out. I'll link it down below. But something that she does mention in her video is that the US fashion copywriting laws versus fashion copywriting laws in Europe tend to differ, because at the time that the fashion copyright laws were being made, a majority of the big fashion houses were in Europe. In the US, you can copyright songs, films, books, paintings, but you still cannot copyright fashion designs, and it is seemingly becoming harder and harder to protect fashion designs. So firstly, something which is very important to differentiate before we have this conversation is the difference between counterfeits and knockoffs. So a counterfeit of a Chanel quilted purse will literally look the exact same down to the Chanel logo and the Chanel label, and counterfeits, because of that reason, are illegal, because they are claiming to be a Chanel bag when they are not a Chanel bag. Meanwhile, knockoffs, yeah, they may look nearly the exact same, they won't have the Chanel logo or the Chanel label. They may even have a logo which looks nearly identical to the Chanel logo, but as long as they're not claiming it to be Chanel, then it is completely legal and it's a knockoff. And the reason that you can't copyright a lot of fashion designs is because fashion and clothing is seen as a utility, therefore you can't copyright it. You can maybe copyright a print or pattern, like how the great Eros has copyrighted their packaging pattern, but you cannot copyright a design or shape of a clothing, if that makes sense. So the We Are Kin strappy maxi dress cannot be copyrighted. The By Second Wind in detachable chain masks cannot be copyrighted. The grayscale leather corset skirt cannot be copyrighted. The list goes on, you guys know what I'm trying to say. And a lot of people say to designers who have allegedly been ripped off by Danielle that you should just sue. Why don't you just sue? And the fact of the matter is that you can't, because you can't copyright fashion designs unless it's a pattern, so your case will not hold up in court. And even if copying fashion designs and shapes held up in court, I don't think any small independent designer is going to want to go up against a millionaire influencer who can afford a really good legal team, because legal fees are very, very costly. And these fashion copywriting laws, or more these lack of fashion copywriting laws, do have pros and cons. A lot of people believe that the lack of fashion copywriting laws and being able to take heavy inspiration and basically copy people's designs leads to the fashion industry basically innovating itself, which I kind of understand, but also I kind of disagree with.
Fashion designers take inspiration, as they put it, from existing designs, and they do this with abandon. But this is what creates trends, and trends sell fashion. When the copying proceeds to a certain point, fashion-forward people have had enough. They jump off. They jump on to the new trend that copying has helped to set.
This rapid cycle, created by the freedom to copy, actually forces the fashion industry to innovate.
I feel like the ability to be able to copy designs already speeds up the accelerating trend cycle. One example which I can think of is the House of Sunny Hockney dress, which is made by, I call it a semi-sustainable brand. They became really, really popular in December 2020 because Kendall Jenner wore it, and very quickly cheaper brands started copying the dress. The original dress is £98, to the point where now you can buy an exact copy of the dress on AliExpress for £8. And because loads of people were buying the dress because you could get it now for really cheap, people believe that it started to oversaturate TikTok, so now a lot of people think that the Hockney dress is ugly and chuggy, which in my opinion, I don't think the Hockney dress is ugly. I have 2 Hockney dresses and I love them. But you guys see where I'm going here. Clearly it does accelerate the trend cycle, and I feel like it encourages overconsumption. But another pro to this lack of fashion copywriting laws is that it makes designer things a lot more accessible. You can now buy dupes of Chanel bags, Gucci belts, Balenciaga shoes, and it won't set you back thousands of pounds. And also, I don't know whether I'm like chatting out my ass here, let me know what you guys think, but I do feel like this ability to make copies does almost take away from the elitism of designer fashion, because the only thing really which is separating a genuine Gucci belt, which is like £1,000 I think, is it £1,000? It can't be £1,000. £300. Okay, I was gonna say I doubt people are spending £1,000 on a belt, but anyways. The only thing which is separating a £300 Gucci belt versus a £15 Gucci belt that nearly looks the exact same, apart from maybe the quality, is the label. And I feel like maybe this ability to copy takes away from the elitism of designer fashion. Let me know what you guys think of that. And also another pro is that huge fast fashion empires basically can't go and mass copyright designs, but there are a lot of cons to a lack of fashion copywriting. First of all, there is absolutely no way for independent and small designers to protect themselves, whether it's from AliExpress stealing their design and making a £3 version of it with really cheap synthetic non-biodegradable materials by an underpaid and exploited factory worker, or if a millionaire influencer is going to rip you off after messaging you asking for samples. There's no way to protect yourself unless maybe it's a pattern, and that's if you're lucky. Sometimes you can't even copyright patterns, and a lot of people don't realise this, but these blatant copies, they run people out of business, because there are a lot of people, whether it's due to financial circumstances, whether it's due to just over consuming clothing, that would rather purchase the £3 AliExpress version than the actual original. And some of you guys may be wondering, I know that I was wondering this whilst I was researching this video, is why has there been basically no progress since the 70s when it comes to fashion copywriting. And I think a pretty big reason for this is that the ability to be able to copyright designs, I don't think is very profitable. If being able to copyright designs was a thing, then big fast fashion brands would not be able to constantly rip off small designers and make a huge profit from it. I want to discuss Danielle Bernstein's image. So I was definitely wondering when I was researching for this video, why has Danielle allegedly done all of these really controversial things? Why has she allegedly copied people's designs? Why has she allegedly got her team to bulk buy her book? And I think that a lot of it boils down to how Danielle maybe wants to be perceived and the rise of the girl boss. I have made a video about girl boss feminism on my channel before, so feel free to check that out. But basically I feel like in the past 10 to 5 years there has been a rise of women in their 20s and 30s wanting to start their own business and be successful entrepreneurs. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with wanting to run a successful business as long as you're not like exploiting anybody in the process. I don't see a problem with wanting to be financially comfortable and want to be your own boss. Some people just want to do that. But I think that there is a very big difference between just being an ambitious, business-minded woman versus being a girl boss. A big part of being a girl boss is your image. I would probably say 80% of being a girl boss is how you are perceived by others, which is why successful girl bosses are really vocal about their success, particularly on social media. They will post about their upcoming launches and their exciting meetings that they can't wait to tell you guys about. They will sell books on advice on how to be a businesswoman and a girl boss. They'll run seminars and talks across the continent, you know, explaining their success and teaching you how you can be successful just like how they're successful. But the stuff which is in their talks isn't in their books, which is why you should go to their talks. When in reality, and I feel like this sounds really mean, a lot of these girl bosses aren't doing so great themselves. Sophia Amoruso, who was the founder of Nasty Gal and the person who popularized the term girl boss, she wrote an autobiography literally called Girl Boss. She ran sort of these seminar talks kind of things, giving mostly women advice on how to be successful in business as a woman. When she was doing all of this, her company, which she had founded, Nasty Gal, was tanking, and she stepped down as CEO because the company was doing so badly. And I don't believe that we should judge women based on the success of their business. Shit happens, businesses tank, like it's life. But I think when you are selling yourself as an extremely successful businesswoman and you're selling your advice to other women in the form of books and talks, I feel like you're maybe selling women a dream. And I don't think she does these anymore, but I'm pretty sure she carried on doing business talks and selling her book after she'd stepped down as CEO. And some of you guys may be wondering, why are women listening to her business advice when she hasn't really got a lot to show for it at the moment? And I think that a lot of it is because Sophia Amoruso comes across as successful. She looks successful. If she hadn't have stepped down as Nasty Gal CEO, you would have thought she was doing really well for herself because of how she was presenting herself, you know, the whole fake it till you make it mentality. And of course there is nothing wrong with wanting to show a more successful side to yourself on social media. Not everyone needs to post a makeup-free selfie to show the real them. Not everybody needs to post a video of them crying, showing the realities of YouTube. Obviously I don't judge people who do that, do what you want. And also I think that's quite a healthy thing to do for some people, but sometimes it just isn't for you. It's not for me. I don't like posting too much of my emotions on the internet. But there's a very big difference with the whole girl boss thing, and that is because a majority of these girl bosses are profiting from their perceived success or are doing unethical things to seem successful, such as allegedly getting your team to bulk buy your book just to appear successful. And I feel like people are going to think I'm being dramatic when I say this, but I stand by this point. I think in this day and age, especially with social media, I sound like such an old person, I think that appearing successful is actually now seen as more important than actually being successful. And I think a really prominent example of this is the marketing of MLMs and Forex trading. I'm not going to get too into MLM today because there are so many videos on YouTube going in depth into MLMs, but to put it very simply, MLM stands for multi-level marketing, and I'm just going to explain it in an example because it's quite easy. But let's say you work for a makeup MLM and you sell makeup products for a big company. A lot of the time with an MLM you will be recruited in by someone else. So let's say at the top of this hypothetical pyramid there is a lady called Amy, and she decides to recruit 2 of her friends, and then 2 of her friends decide to also recruit 2 of their friends. So now there are 6 people underneath Amy, and Amy gets a cut of all of their sales. So she gets a cut of the 2 friends that she recruited and also their friends that they recruited. Does this seem, I don't know, like a pyramid to you? It's because it's a pyramid scheme. And the thing is with MLMs is that the reason they're so shady is because you actually make more money from recruiting people than actually selling makeup. And a majority of people who join MLMs do not even make back their initial investment. So if you're thinking of joining an MLM, don't do it. And I'm not gonna lie, I know that a load of men are gonna come at me in the comments, I don't care. It works very similar with Forex trading. The people who are at the top of Forex trading don't actually make that much money from the trading. They make more money from recruiting people in and holding like these online lecture seminar lessons. I really recommend watching the documentary Insta Traders. I'm pretty sure you can watch it on BBC iPlayer, it was really good. And a big part of Forex trading or being in an MLM is your social media presence. I don't know if this applies to Forex trading, but I know for a fact that this applies to MLMs. A lot of people who recruit you into an MLM encourage you to buy followers, to buy likes, to post fake orders, to post yourself packaging up fake orders, to get your friends and family to post fake reviews even if they haven't tried the products. And you are encouraged to post any sort of frivolous purchase which you have made, whether it's jewelry, a watch, new makeup, designer bag, car, holiday, even if you've purchased that not with your MLM earnings. Basically to mimic the look of success even if you are doing really shit in your new MLM. And if anybody questions this method of faking it till you make it, your recruiter will probably just say to you, oh don't worry, but you'll make the money anyway so it doesn't matter. And guess what? You won't make the money, so don't do it. And the reason why I don't agree with faking success when it comes to MLMs is because you are selling people a dream, and people are joining your team and you are recruiting people because they want the success that you apparently have. And this fake image of success literally cons people out of money. But what I find so fascinating about Danielle Bernstein is that she was successful before all of her controversies. You know, she has her own clothing line, she released a book, she's on the Forbes 30 under 30 list. And yeah, no, a lot of people will see her as successful despite allegedly copying designs, but in my opinion, I think if you've copied your designs, then is it really genuine success? I think it's just a shame because I don't think that she needed to do this, yet she keeps allegedly carry on doing it. But maybe she just wants to look successful because upon a first glance you see her as a really successful fashion influencer who has her own book and her fashion line, but if you look more into it you see that she's allegedly copied designs and allegedly got her team to bulk buy her book. And I think allegedly doing all of these things just to appear successful really displays the wider symptom of being a girl boss, and the fact that your image is everything, and yet your image is actually more important than genuine success. And just to wrap this video up, obviously there are a lot more deeper flawed issues when it comes to girl boss and especially sort of girl boss feminism, but I've made a whole video about girl boss feminism on my channel and I'm not going to repeat it all in this video, so I will leave that link down below if you guys want to check it out. But yes, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thank you again Spotlight for sponsoring today's video, and I'll see you guys soon for another video. Bye!